The final kind of obstacle, a tight space, crops up in many different places in the urban world, most often in railings, but also in windows, pipes, and occasionally in walls themselves. One of the most common methods for moving through a hole is the underbar, which allows a traceur to swing through a gap by his hands without losing speed. Other simple alternatives include variations on rolling, vaulting, crawling, and climbing. When dealing with a hole, the principal danger is banging your head or knees on the edges, and thus often a traceur will choose a slower, more complicated method in the interest of safety. These 6 broad categories represent maybe 75% of the obstacles in the urban landscape and, as we have seen, can usually be overcome using only standard techniques such as vaults, tic-tacs, arm jumps, underbars, and rolls. However, since it only takes a single insurmountable obstacle to stop a traceur dead in his tracks, the remaining 25% of the environment is much more than just 25% important. Success in overcoming the unexpected depends not on proficiency with pre-planned, predefined techniques, but on core qualities such as strength, balance, quick reflexes, and coordination. A traceur must be able to think on his feet even if his feet are already busy, to smoothly execute moves that he is making up on the spot as though he had practiced them 1,000 times before. This is why parkour training places a heavy emphasis on things like individual precision landings, hanging traverses, balanced cat crawling, and other movements that don't crop up very often in actual full-speed runs, because you never know exactly what combination of power and skill will be needed when you come up against that 1 in a million obstacle. Those movements, along with conditioning exercises like high jumps, press-ups, and crunches, are crucial to developing a body that is capable of dealing with anything, not just with the things you can plan on and prepare for. Of course, simply having a strong body is not enough to make you an effective traceur. There are many aspects to parkour that we haven't touched on yet, ranging from the physical to the mental and even up to the spiritual level. We could spend hours discussing things like proper progression or developing fluidity between movements, and in fact, there are hundreds of videos and tutorials out there that have done just that, and done it a whole lot more efficiently than I can ever hope to. Since we only have a very brief time together, I'd prefer to leave that level of detail to people who are more skilled than me, and instead, now that we've got a basic level of understanding, get on to the real purpose of this journey. We're going to be spending a lot of time talking about parkour together, but there's really no better place to do it than the one that we're headed to. So at this point, we might as well go ahead and get started. Every year, hundreds of traceurs from dozens of countries make the journey to Lisses, to see and train in the places where parkour was born. Many of us are in our teens and 20s. For some, it is the farthest from home we have ever traveled. We don't know what it will be like until we get there. We've seen it before in videos, but there are no maps, no guides, only an idea, a desire to see it for ourselves. It is a true pilgrimage, a shared experience that brings together people of every race and every tongue. We meet each other in Lisses as strangers, with nothing in common but our love of movement. Yet together we train, and when we leave to return home, we take with us a little piece of each other, of names and faces that we will never forget, and memories that are shared across the world. This is Lisses, or, to be more accurate, Lisses, and Evry, and Courcouronnes. The center of Paris is about 16 miles that way. You can just make out the Seine River in the northeastern corner of the frame. The highway cutting across the center is the A6. It's probably the road you'll come in on if you live in Europe and decided to drive. If you arrive via Paris, you're more likely to come in by train, on the RER Green Line, which lets you off near the center of Evry. We could zoom in a little closer and actually take a virtual tour of all the famous spots in the area. If you're good with Google, you can find almost everything from here. The Dame du Lac, Place de Chevreuse and the Long Rayage, even the buildings from the chase sequence in District 13. If you have everything handed to you on a map, though, you miss out on two of the most important parts of the pilgrimage: training around with a local guide, and getting a chance to do some exploring on your own. For that reason, we're not going to be very explicit about how to get around, but here are some of the basics, just enough so you don't feel lost. For the average traceur, home base is located here, the Evry A6 Formule 1 Hotel. Just ask the locals for Formule 1. Even if your accent is as bad as mine, they'll appreciate the fact that you tried. If you're looking for the Dame du Lac, you don't have far to go. It's quite literally right across the street. To get into the heart of Lisses, go mostly south from there. If you don't start recognizing buildings right away, you probably should have watched more videos before making the pilgrimage. To get to the forest, you're going to have to head northwest, out of Lisses. It's a little tricky to track down, but definitely worth a visit. On the other hand, if you're trying to find the Manpower Gap, the university, or the cathedral, your best bet is to cross the bridge behind the hotel and then travel parallel to the highway for a bit before turning north into the city. And that's about it. There are thousands of places to see and to train in the area, but as we said, you shouldn't rely on videos to find them, but should get in touch with the traceurs who live here. Not only can they make your experience 100 times more memorable, but it's also the polite thing to do. You're in their home. Let them know you're here.